Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 5 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start that, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around, my friend Carmen here just might have some cookies for you in the near future. Alright, on to the stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from EagleFeather148. You won't let me tell you the food you bought is moldy? Okay, you can just eat it then. This isn't my story, but a coworker I have. I work in an airport restaurant. You can imagine we get a lot of stuck up and bitchy people who don't see us as humans. We work our butts off to provide the best service we can under the circumstances. Working in an airport setting with unpredictable passenger numbers. For context, our restaurant is split into 2 separate cafes. Mine is the one before TSA, the one relevant to this story happened past TSA. Meaning this was a passenger that either went through TSA or came off a plane from the departure lounge. The kitchen staff had hand-prepared trays of vegetables with a portion of hummus. One of those vegetables is sliced cucumbers. Today, my assistant manager, who runs the kitchen past security, came up to me and told me I needed to check the trays I had for sale because they found mold on the cucumbers in their trays even when they hadn't reached to expiration we have for prepared fresh foods, such as the tray in question. I subsequently pulled my trays because they did, in fact, have mold on them. Enter Act 2 of this story. He came to me about 30 minutes later to tell me this part. Back in post-security past TSA, a lady had bought a vegetable tray. Being the good assistant manager he is, he went over to make sure that it was a fresh tray. She didn't let him even get more than one word out before telling him, "Go away, leave me alone." Now, he isn't a mean person at all. In fact, he makes the most conversation with the customers more than the rest of our staff, including me. He took one look at the tray she purchased. It was moldy. He made a couple more attempts to try and tell her that her food had mold on it so she could get a fresh one, to no avail. He's now at a loss and just lets whatever happens happen. She ate the whole darn thing, cucumbers and all, with 0 complaints. Just goes to show, when an employee comes up to you, hear out the employee just in case they have something important to tell you, such as, "Ma'am, you're about to consume mold. How about you go choose another tray free of charge?" Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Desert Boots. It says, "Her hair was so Karen, she was golden moldy." Another user down below called Ciro1399 said, "Now to question, who's more unhealthy, Karen or mold? I have a feeling the mold died from the Karen infection as soon as it entered her mouth." Okay, number 1, how was Karen so oblivious that she didn't notice mold on her vegetables? That's just nasty. Number 2, I don't think they should have let her eat it still, even if she was being a butthole to them. Because now, if she gets sick, it can come back on them, and she could potentially sue them for feeding her moldy stuff. So, the person in this case probably should have tried a little bit harder or even insisted that they take the tray back, even if it meant getting somebody else involved, like a security person, to help get the tray back from her. This story comes to us from Default Anthony, original Aura Facts. About 6 months ago, I got a referral from my doctor to a medical clinic to check on a minor thing that he was not worried about but was bothering me. He wrote out the referral but couldn't refer me anywhere specific. I did some research online and found a clinic near my house. I followed their process to book an appointment and sent a picture of the referral using their online form. It took 5 months for them to find any availability, but I finally got an appointment. But after 6 months, I couldn't find the referral form anywhere. Knowing that if I started from scratch, it would take another 6 months to get an appointment, I decided to chance it. Somewhat predictably, as soon as I got to the office, they asked for the referral form. I asked them if they had the copy I sent in with the appointment request. They did, but this was not sufficient because it was an electronic copy. And I quote, "Appointments can only be held if we have the original referral or the doctor's office faxes it to us." I stared at the receptionist for a moment or two, dumbfounded by such a stupid policy. Then I asked for 10 minutes to work this out. I hustled out to my car and called my doctor's office. I got the receptionist and explained the situation. Then I grabbed a copy of the picture I had taken of my referral form, the same one they already had, and emailed it to her. She confirmed she would fax it to the clinic right away. I went back into the clinic and could barely suppress my smirk. I told the receptionist that there should be a fax from my doctor's office. As soon as she received it, she compared it to the picture she already had. But this is the same picture that we already have. Yes, but it was faxed from my doctor's office like you requested. Slow Pikachu face for her, big smirk for me. She called over the supervisor, who cracked up and said, okay. I got into my appointment, and it turns out my doctor was right, it was nothing. But I do have my pride at outsmarting their stupid system. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Anomalous Cowherd. It says, I had the same thing with a Stone Age financial company, insisting I faxed a copy of my passport to them. I had an image of it, but they wouldn't accept that. It had to be faxed. I pointed out that my passport wouldn't fit in the fax machine. They suggested photocopying it, then faxing the photocopy. So I printed my image and faxed that instead. They were happy. I think in this case, the doctor's office was just looking for confirmation that the referral form was actually coming from a doctor and not made up by OP themselves. It's actually common practice to want it done that way. They want the original, or they want something directly from the doctor because that would be the best way to verify that it's actually from the doctor. So OP, you might have maliciously complied here, but they still got exactly what they wanted in the end. This story comes to us from Superb Raccoon. Shelly's Seafood Restaurant. Don't mess with the waitress. Near my former place of work was an excellent seafood place named Shelly's. Far better than you would expect from the average strip mall outside, they made amazingly good food. The pasta jambalaya, shrimp louis, and lobster roll were particularly good. And lunch was reasonably cheap, usually $15 with tip if you stayed on the lunch menu. Unlimited bread rolls ensured you would not go hungry, and they were darn good too. One of the waitresses though, well, she could be a little trying. Must have been over 70, a former smoker, and she took 2 to 3 breaths to ask you, "What do you want to drink?" And a little hard of hearing, a challenge for my soft-spoken Australian expat coworker. But she was a fixture, so you bit your tongue and you knew the chef would lay a little extra on your plate, and sometimes free dessert, Boston cream pie house-made. Except the Karens, who complained behind her back, and went to the manager, also an owner, to ask to be reseated. Of course, let me show you to the patio. Well, Jimmy and I exchanged a look because we knew the patio is only open for dinner. 15 minutes later, they stomped back in to complain that no one came to take their order, and they had to head back to the office. And what was he going to do about it? Most people take the hint, lady. Speechless, they sputtered and left. Meanwhile, our waitress wandered by with free pie and the check. Anything else, boys? We're good, Shelly. Thanks for the pie. You boys be good. See you next week. And then she wandered off, still working in the restaurant she started at 60 plus years ago, now run by her son, the manager, at the time of the incident. P.S. Just before COVID, Shelly passed away from emphysema-related problems, 89, working in her restaurant she opened with her husband at age 19, and worked there for 70 years. Her son took over as manager, but she still showed up to work every day, working the lunch hour, sometimes early dinner if she felt good. Wife and I celebrated many events there over the years, including her telling me she was pregnant after 3 years of trying and a miscarriage. Shelly was there for more than a few lunches and dinners. My mate from Australia chipped in to buy her flowers for the funeral when I told him. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called OKLengthiness8405. It says, "That's an effing dedicated woman, opening a restaurant at a young age as a girl in the 1940s, raising a family, fighting illness, and still trotting about her restaurant serving food and pie while remembering the regulars in at least her 70s. Sounds like she did everything she wanted and lived a full life. Cheers to her. I absolutely love this story. I absolutely love the fact that people who complained to the manager were complaining to her son in the restaurant that was hers and named after her. That is absolutely beautiful. Rest in peace, Shelly. There aren't many people like you out there, and you are an absolute gem. This story comes to us from Unthanked Bus Driver. Passenger is me, the bus driver, enjoy walking 4 kilometers home. I'm a bus driver. Passengers have to press a stop button if they want the bus to stop at the next stop. Pressing the stop button flicks on a huge banner on the front of the bus, along with making a loud buzz. There are multiple stop buttons on the bus. The condition of the buses are quite bad here. Some of the stop buttons are faulty. It's usually not a big deal as passengers can see if the banner is flicked on. And if it's not, the passenger can just press another button or verbally tell me to stop. However, it just doesn't register with some passengers that there is a huge visible and audible banner. Unfortunately, these same passengers tend to lose their minds easily. It was 9:30 p.m. and I was driving between 2 large suburbs. Let's call them Sunnyvale and Riverdale. A passenger must have pressed the stop button, but it didn't register on the banner. As I drove past the stop, he yelled, "Oi, you effing dog C, you missed me stop, D-head." I apologized and tried to explain to him that the button must have been faulty and that I would drop him at the next stop. I told him that I could not drop him off on the side of the road because I would get in trouble from the bus company as they have GPS tracking whenever I open the bus door. The passenger just yelled, "Stop talking crap and open the door, ya racial slur." I stopped at the next stop about 500 meters ahead, but the passenger yelled, "Just go to Riverdale, mate, I ain't walking." Now what the passenger didn't know was that since Sunnyvale was a bigger town, the last bus from Sunnyvale to Riverdale was later than the last bus from Riverdale to Sunnyvale. He would be stranded at Riverdale 4 kilometers away from his stop. So I kept driving to Riverdale as the passenger requested. I dropped him and the other passengers off and closed the door. I could see him checking the posted timetable on the bus stop. I put my bus into gear and pulled out. I heard him exclaim, "Hey, wait!" as I did so. Unfortunately, I could not have dropped him back to his stop even if I wanted to. I have a strict schedule and change route numbers after each trip. My schedule now was to fill up the bus with diesel and head back to the depot. I filled up my bus and headed back to the bus depot. As I drove back, I saw him walking on the side of the road from 500 meters to 4,000 meters. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Spiderknoll. It says, "I have always said don't piss off people fixing your food or keeping you alive. I will add driving your bus." Another user down below called OK Mustard Man said, "I'm surprised you aren't allowed to stop between stops at night for safety reasons. I've had drivers that have stopped closer to my road many times, but I'm a female and polite to drivers." I honestly think that part depends on how you interact with the driver. This person was just causing problems right off the bat with the way they were talking, being extremely argumentative. So I'd say OP going by the book and telling them they could get off at the next stop made more sense. And in fact, it was only 500 meters away, which really isn't that much of a walk. Now, I'm not sure if OP was morally right allowing them to get off at the next town over, knowing full well that they'd have to walk all the way back because there wasn't another bus going there, but I think I'll leave that one up to you guys. What do you think about this one? Comment down below. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure to go to YouTube and comment down below. This story comes to us from A Quiet Borderline. Let go of my kitten, have fun catching him. This happened a few minutes ago and I'm still laughing. As I've mentioned in previous posts, I have an ESA named Mr. Wellington, a kitten of about 8 months. He's a sweet, adorable fellow who insists on cuddle time. However, he's a mischievous little devil. His second favorite game to play is ignore the cat wand and scratching post and attack Mommy's arms, legs, feet, and hands with jaws and claws. We're still working on his biting and clawing. His first favorite game? Wait until I open the door to my small dorm room and scurry up and down the hallway like a toddler high on Mountain Dew and Pixie Sticks, leading Mommy on a merry chase up and down the hall until I catch him. As it's the holiday season, there's practically nobody in the dorms. I have permission to live in the dorms until I'm able to get a place of my own to live. Also in the dorm is a young woman who is an animal lover. Let's call her Clarice. Unfortunately, she has something of an I know how to handle animals vibe. I had decided to go to the kitchen in the basement, I live on the second floor, to get my meager Christmas dinner. Unfortunately, Mr. Wellington must have seen The Great Escape and ran into the hallway. Cue me walking up and down the hallway after Mr. Wellington for a good 5 minutes, trying to catch him. Eventually, I managed to wrangle him. I'm carrying Mr. Wellington back to my room when Clarice popped her head out. Now I'm holding him on one arm with my other hand on his back to keep him from turning into the Tasmanian devil. As I mentioned, he likes to bite and claw me. Apparently, this wasn't how Clarice thought I should handle him. Let go of him. Malicious Compliance cued. Okay, I said, and took my hand off his back. Mr. Wellington sensed my hand moved and took a flying leap out of my arms, starting to run back up the hallway. Clarice looked at me and said, "Aren't you going to catch him?" I grinned and said, "You don't like how I was handling him, so I figured you could get control of him." Clarice realized she'd been had and laughed. I'm not that much of a monster, so we went back up the hallway to capture ourselves a kitten. We got him, and I took him back to the room. Now, Mr. Wellington is lounging on the bed, watching me eat some pasta salad, and drinking Diet Coke. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Gifted Garden Snail. It says, "Sport socks. The longer the better. Put 2 of those thick, ugly sport tennis socks over the same hand and let him attack the horrible almighty sock monster. With your fingers in the toes and thumb in the heel, you have just enough grip to grab a paw or head. Ours love to attack and hold on with all her might to the point you could just move the entire cat from side to side, hanging from your hand and arm." I thought OP's neighbor was going to be a bit of a Karen in this one, and they sounded like they were at the beginning, but then when they had a mutual laugh at the expense of the kitten running down the hallway, it made this story just kinda wholesome. Now, I did a bit of digging into OP's profile. There's many posts on there, and it seems like OP's going through a little bit of a hard time. So I want to say to you, A Quiet Borderline, we really hope you get back on your feet soon. We love your stories, and thank you so much for the entertainment you provide us on a regular basis. Don't forget to check out the KCC podcast. Just search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.